Good morning and welcome to the Place Your Trades Network. I'm your host, Swing Pony, and I'm really excited to have Rocky B Trades on with me today. Rocky, let's go ahead and get him introduced.
Good morning, Swing Pony. Thanks for having me on,
Thanks for
and I'm
being on.
excited to discuss news and just the overall market with you.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Before we get started, this podcast is sponsored by Tradeovate, and we will be discussing event contracts today. A lot of options traders, if you're not familiar with event contracts, they're an absolute blast. We will run through them a little bit. There's info, in the chat down below where you can download the app and you can learn to trade event contracts with us. Rocky, excited to have you on.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this market has been an interesting one, right?
Definitely a lot of range, a lot of volatility, a lot of moving parts. There's a new piece of economic news every single day, so we got to adjust every day.
Every day. I do want to pull up the ES chart real quick because it's been a crazy week, right? So we had CPI, we had FOMC back to back. It's an OPEX week. The price action, I think we're all in a little bit of a limbo of just like waiting for something to happen. And, we've been pretty range bound. I think we've got the notorious trend line, right? That everybody's posting about, everybody's looking at. But what I do want to know, and I've mentioned this before, is I remember in particular, like this zone right here and this. This is what I called, quote unquote, Satan's chop box,
Right.
which is why, it makes sense that right here we're struggling as much as we are because it's never really been an easy level or an easy zone to trade. There's a ton of overhead above. I mean, we've got that trend line. We've got all the consolidation we had beforehand. And, we have some interesting patterns going on as well. We have a bit of a broadening formation, potentially a little bit of a diamond top. But yeah, how was FOMC for you yesterday? I know for me, it was like really lackluster. I tried to force trades I shouldn't have.
I agree. So for me, it was pretty boring. I try to be really disciplined on those days and just patient, just because the market's not going to do much when there's a lot of uncertainty up until he speaks. So I really limited myself to like 2 or 3 trades. One was a news trade actually, and one technical trade that was small. So my options account I did well. Then I was messing around with futures, trying to get better at that. Long and shorting for 3 to 5 points, nothing crazy scalping. So pretty boring day overall, but hopefully the rest of the week and just the rest of this month is a little smoother in terms of the trend and where we go from here.
Yeah. I think it's going to be an interesting end of year to see through. We've been in this range. Everybody's just fiending to get out of it. And I think it's a big reminder that, it's a one day at a time market and to really just not go into each trading day with a heavy expectation. I know FOMC days, I actually tend to thrive on. I put in like really low ball bids, both on the calls and the put side, and it tends to work out really, really well. Yesterday's price action, it just wasn't it. And it makes sense if you consider like CPI and the massive move that we had that day. Anytime the market has a huge move, you want to give it time to digest. And I think that's sort of the zone that we're at to see what happens.
Right. I agree with you. The market needs to, I guess, consolidate more, but it's crazy. We've been in this range for a while. So I was expecting a big move. So were the market makers with IV at 120%, premiums really juiced. So the risk to reward for options was kind of tricky. But I guess, market makers win again, and SPY's already coming back down towards 390. It was just 410 like a minute ago, it felt like.
Yeah, it happens quick.
It really does.
Yeah, I was actually looking at this little bear flag earlier that kind of broke to the downside. Looks like we are bouncing off this 39.73 level. I did put a little poll up to see, let's see how that's going. I put up a poll to see if people thought we would close above or below 39.75 today. And 80% of people said we're going to close below.
Below 39.75?
Below 39.75. So let me pull up the event contracts and take a look at that. Do want to note we are looking at, we did have the futures roll, so we are looking at the March levels, which has been a bit distracting to me because the correspondence with like SPX levels, like the spread is just way more than I'm used to. So I'm not having the easy like mental connection, but
Hmm.
hopefully, within a few weeks, we'll sort of tighten that gap a little bit. Okay, let's pull up some event contracts. Let me grab these. Okay. So, event contracts, for those of you who are not familiar, basically, it gives you a really good way to be able to have access to the futures markets and to be able to trade on a daily basis just based on a yes or no. Will it close above this level? Yes or no. So it does have some familiarity to options, but I really like the risk reward. For me, it's a lot of fun to trade these on days where we have a lot of volatility or on days where instead of doing an SPX lotto at the end of the day, I can do something here, which is a lot more affordable, and the risk reward is like insane. So we've got ES, the NASDAQ, Dow, oil, gold, Russell, euro, natural gas, silver. And basically, what you can do is you can step in to what you want to trade. For me, it's ES. I'm not too familiar with the others. I'm not going to claim to be an expert. But you go into the strike list and you have all the strikes listed on the left. And essentially, like right now, the one that I asked about, because as you can see, yes and no are pretty equal. That's what we're trading closest to is 39.75. Are we going to close above it? Yes would be 10.75, no would be 10. So if I buy a contract at no for $10 and it closes in the money at end of day, if we close below 39.75, that contract's basically going to close out at $20. So that's 100% reward. Now you can go into the riskier, quote unquote lotto style of doing this, which does work sometimes. And, if you were to get the no at 125 for 3,900, which is a stretch for today, but you never know. If that were to close in the money, it would close at $20, for example. So risk reward is awesome. What are you thinking, Rocky? What are you leaning
Well,
for today?
I'm pretty impressed. I've never heard of these up until a couple days ago, and I'm really interested just because, I mean, like you said, risk to reward, that's very important as a trader. We're playing a game of probabilities.
Yeah.
And if to risk, it's basically a 50-50 almost, is it going to close at or above this level? I just think risk to reward, like for me, I think maybe the 3,800, yes, could be in play. I mean, we're at 39.74 right now. We've already sold off really hard. Maybe we see a little bit of relief, but I do think it's interesting and a switch of pace, from trading options, futures, stock, whatever you trade. So
They're a lot of fun.
yeah, they seem like a lot of fun.
I work full time, and so for me, I don't, in this market specifically, like you have to actively manage your trades. I have never been in trades for
Hmm.
like shorter periods of time than I have been in this market. It's just what you
Yeah,
have to do because it's so volatile, it's so unpredictable. And on days where I can't sit there and manage a trade actively, like this allows me to be a participant and have some fun and have some skin in the game without putting too much on the line.
right, right. You can't go wrong. And if you can't manage it and you're busy, that's fine. You can still just know that I'm gonna risk this. If it works, great. And if not, okay, I lost a little bit because you're not risking a whole lot to get a nice return.
We love a good fixed risk reward. Okay,
Exactly.
so what are you thinking? So the audience thinks 39.75, no 78%. That's what they're leaning at. What are you thinking? We get a nice bounce here, or
So they're thinking we close below
they're
39.75.
thinking we close below?
I was gonna say above 39.75. I think we've already seen a pretty big sell-off here, and I think with OPEX, is it tomorrow? I think we
Uh,
could see a lot more. I think market makers they don't want us sold off too hard already. They want us probably in the middle somewhere. So I think we could close above 39.75.
I actually agree with you. I'm going to pull up the chart again. Just because, I mean, we'll have to watch this slower trend line. Obviously, we do have a potential diamond top pattern, but if this trend line holds, we are kind of, even if we go a little further, I think we will be due for a bounce. So yeah, I will honor the audience though, and I will go ahead and buy some no's because you guys did not steer me wrong last time, and I want to give you a chance to be the winners again. But yeah, I don't disagree with you, Rocky. I think there is a chance that we could definitely close above.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a fun one for sure. I hope this isn't the whole move because 1.4% is already pretty big, and hopefully we'll have some range the rest of the day as well.
Yeah, it's always the worst when they do all the big moves like overnight or pre-market, and then they leave you with
The scraps.
the scraps. They leave you with the scraps. It's so uncool.
Hmm.
But okay, I want to talk a little bit about you and your trading style because I know your specialty is trading the news, correct?
That's correct. That's my favorite style. It's been my most profitable style, and I love everything about it.
And I think that's refreshing to hear because so much of the market has gone. I'm sure you combine it with technicals, obviously,
Hmm.
but I feel like I haven't heard about a lot of news-driven traders since sort of like the small cap days.
Yeah. I never traded small caps like with news. Actually, it's mainly just I follow a set of news sources that I have on Twitter. I have a scanner, and I interpret the news really quickly because news is all about speed and execution. And the thing is with news is it forces the stock to move. It gives the buyers and sellers a reason to come in with a lot of volume. So with that said, if you can get in quickly, like I try my best to every single time, the options can go nuclear as a result. Not all the time. Maybe you can get a 30-50% move in a minute or less, maybe 100% if the stock continues to move. So that's why I really like news trading.
Yeah. So do you want to walk me through a little bit about your process? I know you have a little deck to run us through.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go ahead and share a presentation I have real quick.
Because that is the thing with news trading, right? Like it's all about speed because like how quickly do you have to get in once your headline
As
comes
soon as
through?
you see the headline,
Okay.
right away, you have to be quick because if you're not, the risk to reward isn't as good, and the stock is going to be moving. So the premiums are already going to be moving as a result.
Mhm.
So you cannot hesitate. Speed is everything. But I guess I'll just quickly, I can walk you through it and go over
Yeah.
an example or two and the headlines I look for. But basically, like I said, news moves, forces the stock to move. It can change the sentiment of the stock. And the thing is usually the IV increases and the Greeks become more favorable. What I mean by that is when you're in an option and the stock is moving due to the news, um, your delta is going to increase, the IV is going to increase. So it increases your risk to reward because in the back of your mind there's a good chance the stock will move and react. Um, so how to trade it? It's not too complex. You got to be following the right Twitter accounts. Just a couple, but those are the five that I follow right there. Fast Off News is number one. Delta One, Oracle NYC, Open Outcrier. Those guys turn on all their notifications, and the way you trade the news depends on the headline. It's
Mhm.
always critical and important though to make sure there's spreads and open interest on the ticker before entering that trade. Make sure it's liquid because you don't want to get in something and the stock no one's ever heard of it and it's not a name that gets a lot of volume to begin with.
We don't like those liquidity traps.
No. And some news will be noise and some news offers incredible opportunity. And I'll explain that in the examples I have. So here are some bullish headlines you can look for. These are the ones I tend to look for. So I have buyout offers, buyout rumors, stock buyback programs, FDA approvals, partnerships, CNBC buying the stock, unusual options activity, increased guidance. So numbers are huge. A CEO or hedge fund manager buying significant amount of shares, also known as an activist investor, and anything with Elon Musk sometimes works as well.
So I'm laughing because that's what I was reading, and I just saw the last part is anything with Elon Musk. And
Yeah,
Alex, our producer, actually used Elon Musk as a part of the art graphic, which is fun.
perfect.
It's like
I'm a big fan, but he
tweeted
tends to move stocks.
that that's what's fascinating to me is I've never seen somebody like more powerful in terms of tweeting about something and just whether it's Doge or Tesla or
Yeah,
I remember there was one time I think he tweeted about a certain company and people pumped the wrong ticker. And
That's
this ticker that
crazy. Oh, I remember that.
calculated just freaking
I
skyrocketed
think it
because
was any. It was some penny stock, I think, and I remember it mooned. Or I think he had a stick. I do know what you're talking about, though. Yeah,
yeah, it's the man has an insane amount of power.
he definitely does. So I guess I'll carry on to bearish headlines, and these headlines have been a little more prevalent just because the market, we've been in a bear market, been selling off hard this whole, past year or so, or whatever. So I've halted production, Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and these are the headlines I look for. CEO leaving the company, hedge fund manager being short, SEC investigation, company getting sued, production recall, antitrust lawsuits, DOJ investigations, and short reports. Short reports are basically these big Twitter accounts, or they have big followings, but they go into DD of why the company is fraudulent. Do they have an accounting scandal? Things like that exposes the company, and usually the stock sells off hard because, it's easier to click sell than buy psychologically. And if there's bad news, that's only going to make someone want to sell the stock.
Right. They say the whole
Um,
staircase up, elevator down, and that definitely. Hindenburg's the big one that I recognize. I know they always are they the ones that sort of like tease like we have something new coming up and everybody's like
yeah, yeah. So
speculating.
Hindenburg, they stopped doing short reports, I think, after like the GME AMC. But my number one example I can remember from my training journey is they had a Hindenburg Nicola short, and Nicola went from like $30 to like 18 in one day. And I was like, yeah, they exposed them for just everything, and the company hasn't been the same since. So, and Bear Cave actually has a short report today, so I might be playing it depending if it's liquid,
Okay.
and we'll see. And that drops at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard.
So
Um,
in terms of picking your options contract, because the news happens so quickly, right?
yeah,
At the headline, a lot of times, going in and quickly picking your options contract can be a little bit tricky too. How do you navigate that?
I always want to go for the one that has the most OI, because those are the most contracts available to trade.
Mhm.
Also, I want to go for like psych numbers, I guess, that you can say like people are probably going to trade, this strike, someone's going to take a $60 strike rather than a 62 and a half strike, like
Right.
things like that. But it has to be reasonably close to the money, depending on where we're at in the week, because you don't want to be $5 out of the money on a Friday or a Thursday, and the stock is $5 away. So I would say just one or two strikes out of the money is usually where I go.
I like that.
Yep, and then I guess I can go over some examples of some trades that I've had in the past with news. So here, this was in April, but JetBlue made an offer to acquire Spirit Airlines, and I did some math at the top of my head. I knew that Spirit Airlines was trading at $2.6 billion market cap, so I immediately bought calls, and it was a small position in $25 calls. Um, and you can see the stock halted up. So I got in right before the halt because you see at the bottom, I see that volume coming in. So
Right.
uh, so he had tweeted fast on news, save on watch. And usually when something's on watch, there's volume, someone's moving the stock for a reason. So I didn't go full size. I took a small position, but the stock went from, $20, 21 to 28
Mm.
in a short amount of time. And I was in that halt up. These were the results on my position. I went really small. $450 position turned to about 5,000. Got over
Isn't that the
1,000%.
best? Isn't that the best?
It's the best. That was one of my best trades, better news trades of the year, definitely. And even though I entered small, with news, if it can go 100% or
Mm.
more, because the stock's going to move. That's great money. So that's
Yeah.
why I love it, because I know the stock's going to move no matter. Like, there's a good chance. That was a little lucky because it was on watch, but there was also volume that volume precedes the news. News confirms that volume. So
And I
that's
did want to note something. I know you mentioned, so your position size was $450, right? Which for you, you said that's a small position. That's to me the beauty of options is that with the potential percentage gains that you can get back,
right.
you don't necessarily have to put as much on the line as you would if you were trading commons because, if it goes in the right direction, the risk reward can be really nice. And I think, obviously 1,000%, nobody would condone always holding out for that or expecting that. But, bigger percentage gains are possible with options. And so you don't have to put as much on the line if you are trading a news event, because there is that volatility.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, that volatility, is going to cause the stock to move. And thankfully, I got called in the halt up. But I can go over more examples. That was an outlier. I've gotten caught in maybe 2 or 3 halt ups my whole career. But here, uh, so here's an example of Merck, and here's a downside example, just to go over it quickly. But Merck on watch after diabetes drug found to have potential carcinogen. Carcinogen is a drug that causes cancer. So I knew in the back of my mind, that's terrible news. The stock's going to sell. The stock sold from 90 to 86.75 in less than 5 minutes, a quick 4% drop. And I was able to get about 132% in like 3 to 5 minutes. So that was a good trade as I had as well. And that just goes to show it goes both ways. Good or bad news, the stock's going to react. And I try to explain these examples that news trading is pretty nice because you don't have to wait all day for the stock to move. It's going to move right off that news.
Right away. And I
Right
do
away.
love that you're pointing out volume. That is something that I want to pay more attention to. I actually want to have D-Book on because I know he's like the volume profile guy and he's always looking out
Yeah.
for patterns. But I think it definitely tells a layer of the story that a lot of traders aren't always in tune with.
Definitely. Volumes, our number one indicator as traders. We want to see buying and selling across the board because that's how we get those moves. If you look at that Merck chart on the top, the stock's not doing anything. You could have the best technical level, like, yeah, it broke $90 psych level, but the stock's moving 20, 30 cents. There's no volume. But when there is volume, there's a reason for the stock to move, a reason for sellers to come in. That's when you see the big move and you capitalize on the volatility as a trader.
I love
So,
it.
um, here's another one, NVIDIA downside watch, SEC chatter. They got investigated by the SEC. This was on a Friday, so this was nice. I have my print in black, but basically NVIDIA was at 185. The news dropped on a 0DT Friday, and the stock had dropped from 190 to 180, or I'm sorry, 185 to 180. $5 drop due to that investigation news, and that was 3 minutes. And a 3% move on the underlying stock on a 0 DTE. I mean, if you're
Ooh.
right on that, you're going to get a nice return, basically.
What chart is that? Is that like a 5-minute chart, a 1-minute chart? What do you
I pulled up the 1 minute for that. This is on Webull, so it's not as clean. I have trading view examples too, but
So with the news, how quickly the stock moves, how quickly the stock plunges or
right.
skyrockets, do you tend to look at a 1-minute chart because you're trying to get in and out?
Yeah, I'll pull up the 1 minute chart. But for news, just getting in the option first is more important than pulling up the chart, in my opinion, because you need to in the back of your mind there's a good chance that the stock will move. If you're focused on getting up the chart first, thinking about it, and then getting in, it's too late. So I try to get in first, and then as soon as I type it in, I'll have the chart pulled up immediately on the side as well. Um,
Pretty quick,
you got to be quick. You got to be able to react. And
for sure.
um, but yeah, there's the example I had. I bought the contracts at 51, and literally in 42 seconds they were at 90. And this is Nvidia. I mean, on a Friday that's pretty nice. And they,
Yeah.
so I was able to get a nice move. I call it a cheat code. Um, just going over, Oxy. This was a huge example, but Oxy shows that Berkshire Hathaway, Buffett could accumulate up to 50% of the company. He already had 19% of it. And this was on a Friday in August. The stock went from 66.50 to 72.50. And you just look at the bottom. Look at how much buying volume that is. Like every dip is a buy to the moon, wherever you want to call it. But those options went 5,000%.
Bottle of Dom Perignon to celebrate.
Yeah, that wasn't me, but this was in a Discord I had called it out in, and it would just provided life-changing results for a lot of people. So I'm glad I've been able to tell people about news trading because it changed my life as a trader, and I think the results, I mean, they can get there if you have the
Yeah.
speed.
And I think it's great to have news trading as an outlet, especially in a market where everything is so wishy-washy and you don't necessarily get the clear moves. Like to have a strong catalyst like that is something that we're craving a lot of times as traders, as we are like range bound in dealing with all of this.
Definitely.
Um, Question for you, because we are going to be wrapping up here in a couple minutes, but we've got some great people in the chat, and somebody said, great stream, quick question, will this PowerPoint be available after the stream? Is this something that you can share?
I share it in my Discord just because it's a bigger presentation. I did this thing called the symposium with the real NASA 00, where we did an educational 2-day event. So you can get it from there, or I also have a news trading thread on my Twitter that breaks it down just like this, and I have these things called hashtag Rocky Recaps. If you just type it in, you can see all my news trading examples with videos, examples, winning and losing trades. So hopefully that answers the question.
So if people want to find you on Twitter, it's just at Rocky B Trades, right?
At Rocky B Trades, yeah, that's me. And if you type in hashtag Rocky Recap or just click it in my bio, at least probably 50 news trading examples will come up with examples, how I broke it down and entered that trade, winning or losing.
I love it. I haven't paid attention to news to this level since like the small cap days, but I'm excited to sort of revisit it. And I think this has been great info. I am curious, once you start playing with event contracts, I do want to see what your experience is like with that as well, because I'm
Definitely.
impressed with them. And anybody who is tuning in, if you could show us some love, like, subscribe, leave some comments, and then download the Tradeovate app and give the event contracts a try, because they are a lot of fun.
Definitely. Download the Tradeovate app. Appreciate you having me on. It's been a blast. And
Thanks for
yeah,
being. I do have one last question for you before we wrap up.
of course.
You kind of mentioned the bullish headlines, you mentioned the bearish headlines, but then there is a little bit of the whole good news is bad news and bad news is good news aspect that is a little bit more unclear. And I think a lot of times that happens with like Fed events, economic events. What are do you have a way of processing those things? Or for you, if it's a bit ambiguous, you just kind of stay away?
Probably if it's a bit ambiguous, I'll stay away. But I've also traded the news. I traded SPX ES based on overall market news. Not as much with like PPI and all these other numbers. Just because sometimes I don't know what is good and bad with those as much as I know that if Apple cuts their iPhone production and sells off $3 to $5, the market's going to sell.
Sure. Apple and the
So
market are very much in sync.
they're correlated. It's the biggest holding. Everybody knows about Apple, and that happened about a month and a half ago. But I probably just stay a little ambiguous with the overall like market headlines. But when it comes to individual stocks, I'll always try to play them if I can, if it's liquid and it's a stock that people trade.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
Rocky,
you.
you guys, give him a follow. It was great having you on. I will be laser focused on volume now because, yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. It tells a different story.
It's important, but thank you for having me on. I really appreciate coming on here. And Rocky B Trades on Twitter. Follow her as well, Swing Pony. And hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
Take care, y'all. Have a great trading day. It looks like we are still trading right at 39.75. Very excited to see where we close. We are kind of holding off on this level. But, we're just getting started. So let's see. We'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.